What's up, Bridal Babes? I hope you're ready for another exciting episode of your favorite local wedding show, Bridal Buzz. Today is a Couple Corners episode. You know what that means. We're joined in studio by Priscilla Rodriguez, owner, founder of Modern Wellness Counseling here in San Antonio. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming again. So if you guys have been watching us for a while, you know Priscilla comes in the studio about once a quarter and amazing topics all about health in your relationship, health with others, just all of the good stuff that you could ever imagine from a life, marriage, family therapist.
Yes.
Cool. So if you like what you hear today, make sure you go back and scroll through all of those Couple Corners episodes. We have a whole list of them on our YouTube, and we'll make sure to label them correctly on our podcast for you. So with that, let's get started. Priscilla, thanks so much again for being here. Why don't we start out the episode by just telling the audience a little bit about you, a little bit about your practice.
Yeah, so like Kat said, my name is Priscilla Rodriguez. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I own an online group practice, which this year's Modern Wellness Counseling and expanded into a group practice, which I'm super excited about because we are now able to serve more engaged couples throughout the state, as well as couples who have already been married or are in long-term relationships. So a lot of things that we focus in on is just relationship foundational skills.
Amazing.
So it's been a really fun journey.
Yeah. So you guys service the state of Texas.
Yes.
Now digitally.
Right.
That's amazing. And how many people do you have on your team now?
Now 3 other clinicians.
Wow.
Yeah.
Serving the people.
Yay, I know, it's so exciting.
That is an exciting step for you. And how long has this practice been open?
For 5.5 years now.
Wow. So this is a really big step, bringing in these new people, and that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So today's episode is all about navigating the holidays, specifically as a couple, because this is the show it is. So why don't we just go over a little bit about the major obstacles that couples can face when going into the holiday season, planning for the holidays, etc.
Right, yeah. So I think in general, holidays is like a double whammy, right? So it's really fun and exciting, but then it's also really stressful and really fast-paced.
Right.
So when I work with couples, especially engaged couples, this is something that we really hit on. I just had a conversation with one engaged couple just last week, just talking about time management, especially with couples where families are in different locations. So wanting it to feel a little bit even when it comes to whose side of the family you're spending time with, when it comes to just even like friends and holiday parties. So really trying to figure out, okay, like how much time are we allotting ourselves for these festivities, right? Because you still need to do everything else, right?
Yeah.
Like all your home things and work and wedding planning. So, you know, it's a lot of like time management skills when it comes into, you know, the stress part. It's more related to, okay, how are you managing your time and the communication revolving around that.
Right. Especially with holidays, if you're traveling from out of town, you only have a couple of days. I know when I go home and I only have a couple of days there, it is so hard to see all the people I want to see, make sure I show them all like how much I care. So that is definitely a big thing in the holiday season for sure.
I think something to help with that is like just having a shared calendar if you don't already, especially when it's like, hey, we have this going on, or, you know, at least checking in with the other person before you commit to something, because overbooking can just be, or double booking can be like a headache kind of thing. So
are you an advocate for like an every other year, like trading off families, or like how do you go about that?
Yeah, so I feel like, you know, either every other year, especially if you have to travel, it's hard to be in, you know, a lot of physical places at once.
Physically impossible.
Yeah. Or, you know, like splitting up, you know, whether it's, you know, Thanksgiving, if you celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas or New Year's or even birthdays and weddings. So just trying to like spread it out. And another option is if you don't want to go, that's also something else that you don't have to do sometimes, just depending what family dynamics are like. And sometimes it can be stressful. So, you know, I think it's always like a mental health piece as well, as far as how are you also taking care of yourself throughout that all the fast-paced movement.
It's a skill, and it takes a little bit of time. I think last New Year's was the first New Year's I ever spent just with my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And it was really nice.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything. We just stayed at home, and I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah,
Like,
this is really
the first time in my life. So yeah, there's always an option for whatever you want to do. And I think just, like you said, having that shared understanding of how to approach it is the most important thing. So what else? We have the time management.
Budgeting. That's always a big one too. Especially if you yourselves are planning your own wedding, your own honeymoon. You don't want to kind of dip into your honeymoon fund or your your wedding fund to buy gifts, and whether that's your Christmas outfits and whatever it is. I think it's just a matter of speaking with each other as, okay, well, how can we go about sticking to a budget? Does this budget make sense for us and our future goals? Right? Can you be creative with your gifts, whether that's like baking or it being like something a little bit more personal, but not necessarily the newest purse on the market for whatever brand it is, right? Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out, okay, what works for you, having that open conversation. And money's always hard to talk about to begin with. And there's a lot of pressure when it comes to, are we doing this together? Are we like buying this one, our mutual friend? Are we just because it's my mom? Am I paying the whole thing? Or So having that conversation, I think it's also a really good exercise as to what it's going to look like in the future after you get married. There's always going to be expenses. So what does that look like for you on starting to create just that, I want to say almost like tradition almost of like, okay, how are we making this work together? What works for one couple is not going to work for you, and vice versa. So just making it unique to yourselves.
There's no one size fits all answer to how to budget as a couple. And this is for couples that have just started dating. This is couples that are engaged, married, with kids. This is always going to be something that is going to be a topic of conversation. So the sooner you get started, the sooner you're able to communicate through those budgeting issues, I think the better for sure.
Absolutely.
So I know we've had an episode about love languages before, and gift giving is one of those. So how would you advise someone who is on a strict budget, but their love language of showing love is giving gifts? Because there's like the way we show love and the way we receive it. So how do you help that person stay on their budget, but also feel like they're showing the love that they want to show?
Normally people who like have gift giving as their love language, right? They really try to think about the other person. What are their hobbies? What are their interests? How is this going to help them, right? So that's kind of you showing that you care, that it's like, I'm thinking about you. I just didn't run into Target and saw the first thing that was on the shelf.
A pair of socks, they look good.
Right, like you're really thinking about the other person. So I think it's also having to remind yourself that, it's not so much about the price tag, but also just the intention behind the gift.
True.
And especially with closer friends and family, I mean, everyone kind of, if you're wedding planning, you're talking about it with them, so they understand. And I think it's just a matter of like, hey, like this is what I'm able to give right now, and it's, I thought of you kind of thing. So I think it's always like I think we think like, oh my god, they're gonna judge us, or what are they gonna think? So I think it's just a matter of like the intention behind it.
So we've had time management, we've had budget, and before we move on to the next obstacles, let's just give a shout out to today's sponsor, Texas Wedding Ministers. If you're looking for an officiant, if you're looking for someone to help you with an elopement, even an in-city like pop-up wedding in a park, Texas Wedding Ministers is here to help you. They have officiants for all types of people, dog lovers, cat lovers, book lovers, movie lovers, everywhere in between. It's going to feel right. It's not going to feel like you have some random person in the middle of you guys. It'll feel super comfortable. They're going to help you find the perfect match for you. Texas Wedding Ministers, check them out on sanantonioweddings.com for more info. So again, time management, budget. What do we have next?
Yeah, so earlier we talked a little bit about with time management, how sometimes it's okay to say no. So I think that also ties into boundaries with families, where, whether that means not bringing up a particular topic at, at dinner, whether that's like, when are you having kids next? Or like, when are you getting that new job, or whatever it may be. So I think it's like how you share with someone like, hey, I don't really feel comfortable with this topic. If you feel like family's not going to respect that boundary, having that conversation with your partner, it's always good to feel like you're not alone in uncomfortable situations.
Like, hey, back me up here.
Like help me change the subject whenever this comes up. So I think definitely having to discuss first with your partner, like those boundaries. Being in counseling, I speak with my clients about a lot of past traumas. So I understand that some things may be uncomfortable and having to be around certain people around the holidays.
Especially the holidays.
Yeah, there's almost like this sense of like obligation to attend, and having to remember like you don't always have to attend, or you don't have to stay the entire time. Yeah. Again, having to remember like what's comfortable for you, especially if it's like, you know, we're all going to this one person's house and oh my God, they showed up and now I feel really unsafe. So like it's okay to leave. Excuse and it's okay yourself. to set those boundaries with family. Yeah.
I think also something that just came to my mind is boundaries with budget too. Like does the family want to take a big vacation and you can't afford that? You know, how do you set that boundary and not push yourself past your limit because you love your family and it's hard to say no, you know?
Right. yeah, that's a big one. I mean, I've seen that a lot recently too. I think it's just a matter of like, hey, like I'm also paying for this really expensive wedding. Or we're taking
trying to buy a house.
Yeah, trying to buy a house. We're taking this amazing honeymoon right after the wedding, you know, so just having to remember those life goals. And it's I
think it's hard not to have FOMO, the fear of missing out, when you see people doing, especially now when everybody's starting to travel again and everything, but just getting together with your partner and remembering what your goal is at the end of the day. Yeah.
And saying no doesn't mean that it's forever.
Right.
Yeah. It's just for that moment, and there's always new opportunities.
What about boundaries within your relationship? So say you both have really, I don't want to say demanding families, but families that expect you to be there. And it's hard for one of the couple, like the members of the couple, to advocate for that, or you know, maybe they really enjoy going to your parents' house and you're like, can we cut it out? Like, can we take a break of my parents' place and go somewhere else? Like, how do they approach that? How do we make sure that we're able to communicate through those problems within the relationship as well?
I think maybe going before, or even now, right? Because holidays is like, what, 2-3 weeks away? So like having the conversations, like ideally, what does this time look like for you, right? Kind of getting a good picture as to what this looks like, what makes you feel comfortable, and how can we make sure that we're getting there together. Like I really enjoy hanging out with your family, but I recognize that when we leave you're really kind of emotionally exhausted. Like okay, like maybe not spending so much time there, maybe you know, only doing one day, right? Sharing the part of why it's important to be present at a certain family members, because I think it's, you know, there's one thing of I want to be there. Okay, well, share with me what's important for you. Like, what is it about spending time? Is it like the creating those memories? Is it taking pictures with them? Is it speaking with a family member who's ill and we don't know what's going to happen, right? So I think it's just a matter of kind of knowing like where are we at here and how can we make that happen?
The bigger picture. Yeah. And I feel like another big part of the holiday season is traditions, which is the last point of today's episode. So give us an understanding of how couples can approach traditions, where traditions might get in the way of their wants, or maybe elevate their wants. I don't know. Fill me in.
Yeah, so traditions really make relationships unique, right? Whether it's within the couple, family, or community. I mean, this is what kind of makes things like special, right? So for many couples, especially in the engagement dating phase, they're kind of creating their own units, like traditions. So what is it that they're going to be doing, either just for themselves or future family, if they do decide to have a family, you know? So being able to see that as like an opportunity of like, we're creating this uniqueness about us, right? This is our story. So I think it's always fun to kind of create something new, as well as what were some of your favorite childhood traditions? What is it that you loved about Thanksgiving? What was your favorite part? Like, is there anything that you're wanting to bring from childhood and put it into our family? And then is that still happening with your family of origin, right? Whenever we go visit your parents or we go visit my parents, like, is this still something that we still do? And
do I need to be aware of something? Like...
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone like shows up wearing something. It's like, oh, I did not get that memo.
They all brought a present, and like your partner forgot to mention that was necessary.
Right. Yeah. Family games. Yeah. So I think it's just, definitely letting the, each other in on what that is. Like, what does your family do, or what were you brought up doing? What do you miss doing? So I think that can definitely elevate a relationship because you're learning about your partner, which is always important, especially when things change.
Right.
Right. So, and then I think a way that it can possibly get in the way is, you know, both families have similar traditions, right? Growing up, my family had, like, we would wait till midnight on Christmas Eve and open presents at like midnight Christmas Day. My husband's family had the exact same tradition. So when we were dating, I was like, oh, how is this going to work? Thankfully things change now. Like, there's not really like many little kids, so we just open gifts whenever. But when we first started dating, I was like, my mom was like, you gotta be here for like, you can't miss this. And his mom was the same way with him. So that was hard. So I think it's just a matter of like, okay, how are we going to, like, you know, do this? Is it 1 year we spend it with one family, the next year we spend it with the other family, especially when it's like the exact same, which is kind of, I don't know how that always happens, but
it's like a combination of all of the obstacles we talked about, time management, budgeting, everything. Like, how can you be in two places at one time?
Right.
Yeah. I know in my family we did white elephant, but on New Year's.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's like a random thing. And if you were coming to our New Year's party and you didn't know that, you would definitely be left in the dust, because typically we try and bring a couple of extra presents for that reason, just in case someone shows up without a white elephant gift. Because who's supposed to expect that on New Year's?
Right.
So anyway, I think that's, you know, a great thing, and people can also remember to start their own traditions. And I think I didn't really realize that early on in my relationship. Like, we're setting stones up, and, you know, we're setting up a path for ourselves. We're setting up milestones and memories that could potentially turn into tradition, could potentially be carried through to our kids and our kids' kids. Maybe, you know, like I wasn't thinking that big when I first started dating my boyfriend, but we've been together for 5 years, and there are things that we're like, we like doing this at this time of year because, you know, we've been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years together, and I didn't even realize like that's a tradition. So thanks, Priscilla. Is there anything else you want to mention about navigating the holidays as a couple?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the biggest piece, right? I'm always an advocate on communication, finding different ways to connect. Holidays can be a really stressful time. It can bring up a lot of memories too, whether they're positive or, you know, maybe even negative, and it's okay if that happens. So being able to open up with each other, taking some moments to just kind of decompress, I think is always helpful, either individually or together as a couple.
Awesome. And this will be available on sanantonioweddings.com as well, under the Couples Corner section of our blog. And Merry Christmas. I think today is going to be Christmas Eve when this episode goes out. So Merry Christmas, everybody, to those celebrating today. And I hope, you know, this time is not stressful. And I hope you get a little bit out of this episode and take it into your future together as a couple. So again, shout out to today's sponsor, Texas Wedding Ministers. And Priscilla, if they want to find you, if they want to reach out to you, where's the best place to do that?
On Instagram or Facebook at Modern Wellness Counseling, or my website, modernwellnesscounseling.com.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you again for being here. And before we end, I just wanted to give you a little gift.
Oh, thank you.
We work with Boom City Coffee, and so I hope you drink coffee.
Yes, I do.
These pods they're Keurig pods, and it's a local coffee roaster. So how incredible is that?
Yeah.
Isn't that so cute?
Yes, I'm excited.
Yes. So I hope you enjoy that. And Boom City Coffee is an amazing coffee company here in San Antonio. They give back to veterans' causes, and they're just awesome. So we love supporting them.
That.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, let's just wave goodbye, and we'll see you next time, Bridal Babes.